Hey all, this is Val here with another Epic 7 video. And in today's video, we're going to take a look at regular old everyday Earth Vildred. Not Arbiter, soon to be nerfed Vildred, which, I'm sorry. Oh, you see it? Oh, give me a moment. I'll be okay. I'll be okay. But we're not here to talk about that today. Today, Earth Vildred is the spotlight. Let's go ahead and take a look at his skills like we normally do. Skill 1, Sweep. On use, acquire 1 soul. Rapidly attacks 2 enemies with a sword storm. Damage dealt increases proportional to the caster's speed. You can see here there is 5 skill enhancements for a total of 35% extra damage dealt. Skill 2, Dancing Blade, which is the passive ability. Increases attack of the caster for 2 turns and attacks all enemies 1 more time when an enemy is defeated by Sweep or Blade Ascent. Increases combat readiness of the caster by 20% when an enemy is defeated. You can see this can also be enhanced 5 times, and you will pick up 30% extra damage dealt by the additional skill. That means basically when you kill something and it procs his extra ability, that extra ability will do 30% more damage on max skill. Skill 3, Blade Ascent, acquire 2 souls, and by default is on a 5-turn cooldown. Attacks all enemies with a sword storm, dealing damage proportional to the caster's speed. Soul burn effect for all of 10 souls increases damage dealt. You can see it has 5 skill ups. You can get a 1-turn cooldown reduction, which lowers it down to 4 turns, in addition to picking up 30% additional damage. Now, this is a great kit. It works very well for farmers, for arena. I mean, it's just plenty of places that this kit is highly effective. As you can see here, I've got 3 points in each of these. I do plan on max skilling him at some point because it is definitely worth it. Let's take a look at his imprint, which is just awesome. It is speed. He's the only 5-star unit that does get a speed imprint. If you take a look at it, he does affect all slots, and at max skill, he picks up 12% speed. Again, keep in mind, imprints do not apply to the unit that has it. So when looking at an imprint, you want to observe what slots are affected by it. This is important because if there is a slot that's not affected by it, you want to put that unit in that slot since it cannot take advantage of its own speed imprint. Here, picking up 12 speed in the current meta is a big deal. If you are able to max skill Vildred, I highly recommend it. Alright, let's go ahead and move from skills and imprints into the actual stats for mine. Here you can see I went with 3k attack, 607 defense, 9k health, 177 speed, 100% crit chance, and 248% crit damage. Now, very key things that you want to focus on with Vildred is attack, speed, crit chance, and crit damage. These are the main stats that you want to focus on. Now, with my stats out of the way, let's take a look at the gear. You can see here that I went with Destruction and then Broken Set. Keep in mind, your 2-piece set is all about meeting your stat goals. I've said this in every video. And you always want to look at what best fulfills that. It is not always going with a complete 2-set piece. It is all about reaching your stat goals. I went with Destruction because I wanted him to hit hard and I knew that I was going to get a 100% crit. When going with Destruction, keep in mind if you don't crit, it is worthless. So make sure that you obtain enough crit to give the Destruction set value. Now I'm going to go ahead and show the stats on my gear. If I do go too fast, please feel free to pause the video. Alright, after taking a look at his gear, let's go back and tie it into our stats. Now, ideally on gear, you're looking for attack, speed, crit chance, crit damage. These are going to complement him very, very well. When we're talking about our right side, we really want to focus on crit damage, attack, in speed, or crit damage, attack, attack. If you are able to get him at least 175 speed at minimum, then I highly recommend going with speed boots. If you can't easily get 175 or more because you had good speed substat rolls and other pieces of your gear, then I highly recommend crit damage, attack, attack for his build. Speed does benefit him, and also that gives him a wider use in arena, so it is highly recommended that you get as much speed on him as you can. Now, when you look at my gear, destruction, you can see that I went for crit damage, attack, and speed here. The health really doesn't matter much here, but you have to work with what you are given. Now, once you have your set determined, the base stats that you're looking for is at least 3k attack at minimum, at least 175 speed. I personally say 100% crit chance on a unit that you're going destruction, but if you're unable to get that, 85% should suffice. And for critical hit damage, I would recommend 250% crit damage. You can see here that I missed the mark here, but only by 2 points. I'm working on it. His build is not done. As you can see, I can replace the chest here. While it did roll good, I don't have any speed, and I don't have any attack. But this is a chest piece, so I guess it's not that big a deal that there's no attack. But speed is absolutely critical for this. Now, let's talk about neck, because I love to talk about it. Now, neck, this is one of those slots where I always recommend that you go critical hit damage on a unit like this. That is because the more critical hit damage you do, the better. If you take a look at if you're able to go with, like, let's say 11% neck, since we went with 11% here, so that's 55% crit damage. Then when you figure in the set bonus of 40%, that's 95% crit damage just in these, just in the set and in the neck. That doesn't account any additional crit damage that you get on the gear itself. Now, because it is so critical to me on units like this to get 100% crit, and I could not reach it without this, I went with the crit chance necklace, and you can see that it does have a crit damage substat. Now, I recommend the reverse of this if you're out there doing it and able to get to 100% crit, which is have critical hit damage as the main stat, and then crit hit chance as a substat. And then, of course, the speed is okay. You do want attack, and then whatever fourth stat you feel is appropriate for the build. You can see this is a pretty terrible necklace, but it was the best I had, and it still got me to my stat goals. Now let's take a look at our two-piece. You can see here that I went with this primarily because of the 9 speed and the attack. Everything else is just so-so. The crit chance is minimal at best. Effectiveness is not really used on him at all, and health is just, it's good to have, but it's not critical on this unit. Here you take a look at the boots. You see I did need to go 40 speed because without that it'd only be 137, and that's really unusable for PvE purposes, and he's a great unit for PvE. But we did get our attack, our crit damage, and our crit chance, so this actually was a good bet for us. Now ideally you would want attack, have a speed substat, and then the rest of these are great. You would want to put the attack up here, throw the speed where attack is, and then this effectiveness can be really whatever sub you want, even a flat stat, although ideally you would want like maybe defense or something like that. But this is why I went broken, because you can see I pick up 17% attack, critical hit damage, and 40 speed. Now if I had put on something else, likely I wouldn't have attained these numbers, but this is the best that I could do in this slot, and it is broken. You can see here this 9 speed combined with this gives me almost 50 speed just between these two pieces. So that's why it is critical to look at what your stat goals are, and then take a look at what you can do for your two-piece. This is a good example of practicing what I preach. This is just really important. It's really important you look at the two-piece set from a purely stat bonus perspective, and if you can work in an actual set here, that is great. If you can't, these stats take priority overall. Now let's take a look at his artifact. Now artifact to me is kind of a no-brainer, which is RNL. There's a lot of different artifacts that you can use on this. There's portrait, there's dust devil. You have a lot of options. For me personally, I think that RNL is an excellent option for him. There are other solutions, but in my opinion, this is going to be the better artifact for him. Now, we've looked at it, so with a build like this, where do you use your Vildred? Where is he effective? Now, because we were able to obtain enough speed to make him usable in PvE, he is usable as a farmer. He is usable in Banshee. Now, Banshee is going to be an excellent use for him. He is going to cut down those Banshees like there is no business. Now, ideally, though, if you are going a Banshee build and you want to go a speed Banshee team, you do want to make sure that he does, I believe it's 9,700 damage on that first stage so he can one-shot them. To obtain that, you're looking at about 3.7k attack, probably about 195, 200 speed, 100% crit, and about 260, 270 crit damage. With those stats, you should be able to one-shot that first wave, going ahead and bringing in your bacon or whoever you're using to one-shot the Banshee. It is absolutely critical that he one-shots that first wave to give you that speed run. Also, armor break will likely be an important part of that team, so make sure to include it there. In addition to his PvE uses in Banshee and as a farmer, he also can be used in Abyss Tower. He works very well there. He can be used in regular tower to speed clear the waves below just because of his AoE damage and his proc. It's excellent there just to get you through those first few floors, so that way you don't have to sit there and manual them. Just set it on auto and let your Vildred go to work. Now, PvP uses are standard cleave team. You will see definitely in lower levels they starts to drop off due to Ball and Harado being more prevalent in higher levels, but you can go a team like Ruzid, Bellona, Diane, Vildred. Now that's basically the anatomy of pretty much any cleave team, because you're looking for roles. You need a combat readiness booster, an attack buffer, an armor breaker, and then a cleave unit. In this case, your Ruzid would go first, then your Diane for the attack buff, then your Bellona for the armor break, and then your Vildred to clean everybody up. That is pretty much a standard use for a unit like this. Back in the day, you would slap on Wind Rider to get that bonus damage, but as we all know, Wind Rider was changed. While a lot of people felt it affected Says the most, it also affected Vildred Cleave because he could basically use it the same way, as his secondary proc would take advantage of the extra attack on that same turn, but since the artifact was changed, he no longer gets that advantage. It's basically the same thing for Says, but a lot of people said it nerfed Says, when actuality it nerfed anyone who took advantage of that mechanic to get the attack buff within the same turn that they killed something. Vildred being one of those units. Even without that, Vildred is still perfectly viable in Arena. He is a great unit for cleaving. However, beware of Harado and Ball teams. Due to the amount of turns that you take to set up the cleave, they will definitely mess you up big time. And that is because every turn you take, Ball will gain 25% combat readiness, and eventually he is going to outspeed you either on your first or second turn. And that's going to do it for this review. I really like Vildred. I think he is an excellent addition. If you do have him, I highly recommend you build him. He is worth the Mulligora investment. He's worth the gear investment. He is worth the gold investment. Hands down. He is one of those timeless units that has withstood the test of time, who has endured nerfs and remained pretty much unchanged, and an excellent unit. Plus, let's be honest, he just looks badass. I mean, look at that guy. He looks super cool. He does. He looks amazing. I don't regret investing in him at all, and I plan on to invest in him further in the future. Thank you all for watching. If I missed something, feel free to leave it down in the comments below. You know how I am. I'm pretty cool. I'm pretty laid back. I do take constructive criticism very well. So don't be afraid. Always good to hear back from the fans, whether it be criticism or praise. All right, that's going to do it. As always, all you dudes and dudettes out there, stay frosty.